A very warm welcome to everyone joining today's webinar. Today, we will be talking about cyber insurance. In the last couple of months, I've been talking to a lot of CTOs, and everyone seems to be worried about reducing their cyber insurance premium costs because it's a mandate now that you must have a cyber insurance policy in place in order to claim insurance after a cyber attack. This is a very, very important topic that I thought I must discuss with all of you. So we'll just start. Uh, Before we start, we'll take a quick look at the agenda of this webinar. We'll be broadly discussing the global rise in cyber attacks and how it has fueled the need for cyber risk coverage. And After a brief introduction regarding cyber insurance and how it works, we'll get to the main part where we'll discuss the seven must have IAM features that will get you high cyber insurance coverage at a much lower premium cost. And towards the end, I'll tell you how Manage Engine's cybersecurity solution can help you with implementing these seven must have features. So let's get in. Today, the world is driven by the internet, social media, online transaction, cloud services. But along with this technological advancement, we also see a huge increase in the number of cyber attacks. So, cyber criminals are exploiting the latest technologies and they're developing sophisticated tools, techniques to gain access to corporate and personal networks. And this attempt to gain unauthorized access to a computer or network to steal, destroy sensitive data, these cyber attacks they not only result in financial losses, but they also expose businesses to regulatory actions or data breaches, loss of trust among customers, and not to mention the reputation which is totally at stake at this point. So cyber criminals they use a variety of medium to launch these cyber attacks, like phishing, like ransomware, malware, social engineering attacks. Now the post pandemic world it is entirely driven by remote hybrid workplaces. We've moved from remote to a hybrid working model right now, and employees are using multiple personal devices like mobiles, laptops, tablets to connect to the corporate network for performing their activities. Now, such use of personal devices where the overall absence of fixed enterprise network is so prominent, poor cyber hygiene practices, lack of adequate cybersecurity measures, all of this has led to an increased number of cyber attacks and data breaches all across the world. But with such an alarming increase in the number of cyber attacks, this is undeniable that the financial losses incurred has also increased by multifold, and these financial losses are usually the highest in case of ransomware attacks because the cyber criminals try to extract money by blackmailing. And now, especially with the use of advanced cyber attack techniques like double extortion, cyber attackers have been demanding higher ransom payments. In fact, there's a security consulting group, and according to them, the average ransom demand in 2021 was $5.3 million. IBM has also estimated that the total cost of a ransomware breach was an average of $4.62 million in 2021, and this is not even including the ransom. So, these statistics are just a reminder for businesses of all sizes to opt for cyber risk coverage as a respond mechanism or a recovery strategy. And in cases of cyber attacks, businesses become liable to pay millions of dollars in compensation to their customers or third party associations or government regulators. Now, to help them do this, businesses are starting to opt for cyber insurance as a mean to get cyber risk coverage. So, let's begin with what cyber insurance actually is. Now, cyber liability insurance coverage, in short, we call it cyber insurance. It's a type of insurance that covers the cost of cyber attacks and data breaches. Now, the whole idea of getting cyber insurance is actually to lower the financial risks caused by cyber attacks. Now, like any other insurance, a monthly, quarterly, or yearly premium is paid to the cyber insurance provider to transfer some amount of the financial risk to the insurer. Cyber insurance can be opted by any organization that creates and manages data, and this data can be customer details, such as name, contact number, credit card details, or other personally identifiable information. Now, today there are different types of coverage that is offered by a typical cyber insurance policy. For example, there are coverage provided by cyber insurance policies that can cover losses caused by data destruction or data extortion or theft or hacking. Now, based on the type of cyber insurance, the coverage for each policy will vary. Now, let's talk about why exactly do we need a cyber insurance. So, cybersecurity experts, they have predicted that there will be more than 10.5 trillion dollars worth of damage from cyber attacks by 2025. Now, we know that cyber attacks often result in data loss, compromised data, theft of sensitive data, and such data breaches can negatively impact a business. They lead to loss of customers, and then eventually they cause heavy financial losses. Now, if a business loses third party data, they can become liable for the damages that are caused to the client as well. So, cyber liability coverage is important to protect businesses against the financial risk of cyber attacks. And in fact, in worst case scenarios, cyber insurance can help them recover from the damage caused by cyber attacks. To be honest, there are statistics that have estimated that there will be an exponential increase in cyber attacks in the future, and that also means that the cost of insurance premiums will also increase. So cyber insurance, you have to look at it as an investment that businesses should consider investing in right away. We'll take a closer look at how a typical cyber insurance policy works. So, cyber insurance policies, they work based on different types of coverage. One of them is first party coverage. So, in a first party coverage, losses that directly impact the business alone are covered. Then there are policies that also include third party coverage. In this case, when a cyber attack happens, the losses suffered by third party clients or customers are also covered by the insurance provider. So, these cyber insurance policies, they help cover different financial losses resulting from cyber events in many ways, and like the costs associated with data recovery or legal costs or customer refunds, all of these are covered by cyber insurance policies. Now, as I mentioned earlier just a while ago, that with the alarming increase in the number of cyber attacks, uh, an increasing number of businesses are purchasing or opting for cyber insurance policies to reduce cyber risks. So, as a result, what's happening is cyber insurance companies are being forced to deal with frequent and expensive reimbursements. So, what do they do? Cyber insurances are raising their premium costs and they're reducing the risk coverage payout amounts. Also, since cyber risks keep increasing, the cyber insurance providers are becoming more selective about the enterprises they choose to cover. Therefore, if you want to get higher cyber risk coverage at a lower cost, you have to maintain a low risk score. So let's see how you can achieve a low risk score. Now, to answer this question, we'll first look at the NIST's cybersecurity framework in close. So this framework is designed basically to help businesses with their cybersecurity strategies, and it's very uniquely designed to help businesses at almost all stages of cybersecurity. So let's say an organization that has no cybersecurity strategy set in place and they're starting all fresh. Now, this framework can help them navigate the process right from the establishment to implementation. Now, on the other hand, there's an organization with a pre existing cybersecurity strategy in place. What they want here is to improve the same, and they want to become more cyber secure. In the same way, this framework can also help them with improvement strategies and help them improve their cybersecurity program. So, the NIST cybersecurity framework is basically a set of guidelines and best practices. And the idea behind these recommendations is to help organizations build or improve their cybersecurity posture. And this framework does this by providing the organizations with a set of recommendations that will help them to be prepared or better prepared to identify or detect and prevent cyber attacks. Now, it also helps them respond to a cyber attack and recover from its consequences. So, the NIST cybersecurity framework is composed of five core functions: identity, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So, we'll discuss these one by one. So, the first core function is to identify. Now, for an organization to become secure, the first step is undoubtedly to identify what needs to be secured. And to, if I had to elaborate this, this means that at ground level, an organization needs to identify all the networks, assets, operations, resources that need to be secured in the first place. The next core function is to protect. Now that the organization has identified the assets and the processes that need to be protected, the next step is to actually protect or secure them. So, this is where the real time deployment of all processes and tools to secure the organization from cyber attacks falls under. The third core function is to detect. So now technically the important assets and operations to be protected are identified, and we've also put defense mechanisms in place for the security. So an organization defense strategy is all set. Now we'll move ahead to the response strategy. Now the first step is to detect that there is an issue. There's the actual part of detection of a cyber threat or a malware whenever it occurs is what falls under the detect function. Therefore, this is where the tools to identify the occurrence of cyber attacks are all set. Now, the fourth core function is to respond. Technically, now the cyber threat has been detected by an organization. Now, how do they respond to it? How quickly do they need to respond? What is the first step? So, all these steps that will fall under the respond function, and the most important of all, how do we contain and limit the impact of the cyber incident? So, that will also be defined under the respond function. Now, the last core function of NIST's cybersecurity framework is recover. Now, we see so many organizations across the world getting impacted by cyber attacks on a daily basis. And as important as it is to try and avoid the misfortune of getting attacked in the first place, it is equally important to be ready in case one happens. So that is where the recover function comes into place, and it involves trying and recovering from the aftermaths of the cyber attack and restoring the business conditions and security as it was before. So these are the five core functions of the NIST cybersecurity framework. Now, when an organization deploys their security functions based on these five core functions of the NIST cybersecurity framework, they naturally improve their defenses against cyber attacks, and their risk score will again naturally go down. So, as we just discussed, the NIST cybersecurity framework, they provide us with a set of core functions. They help us reduce the risk score of the organization. Now, the question is, how can the organization implement these NIST recommended core functions? So, for that, I have put together a checklist of must have IAM features that are aligned to the NIST's core functions. So, the low risk score can be achieved using these 7 IAM must have features. It'll also strengthen your cybersecurity posture. It'll ensure that your business gets approved by the top cyber insurance providers, and that too for a lower premium cost. So these are the 7 IAM must have features which are aligned with the NIST recommendations: user lifecycle management, password management, endpoint MFA, single sign on SSO, cached credentials, updating cached credentials, privileged access management, and user activity tracking. Before we discuss each of the previously mentioned features in detail, I just want to let you know how 8360 can help you here. So, 8360 is Manage Engine's IAM solution. It can help you streamline your user lifecycle management process. It can ensure a seamless authentication process. It will help you with password management. So, 8360 has on premise, cloud based, and hybrid compatibility. So, irrespective of the size or nature of your organization, 8360 will definitely be the right fit for the IAM requirements of your organization, and it'll also help you implement the NIST's cybersecurity framework in your organization. So, moving on, now we'll discuss the 7 essential IAM features in detail in accordance with the NIST's cybersecurity framework. So, the first and one of the most important IAM must have feature is user lifecycle management. Now, if I had to put this in simple terms, user lifecycle management is nothing but just the process of managing user accounts throughout their existence. So it begins when new employees are hired, and you have to create new user accounts for them, and then it ends when the employees leave the organization and their user accounts must be disabled immediately and eventually deleted. So this includes everything from managing their job roles, their groups they are part of, their applications, files, and unlike any other feature, this process is continuous and unrelenting. Now, let's understand this better with an example. So, when an employee leaves the organization, the right security protocol is to immediately disable the employee's user account. And the first step to this is disabling the user account and moving the user account to an organizational unit where it is locked down through some group policy. And then later, the user account has to be completely deleted from the organizational unit. And all of this process may seem simple in case of one employee, but what happens in a large organization where employees resign on a daily basis? How will the IT admin manage this amongst all the million other urgent tickets? It's practically impossible. And improper deprovisioning of formal employees is one of the leading causes of data breaches today. They are responsible for external data leaks, and almost 20% of data breaches were caused by failure to deprovision employees from enterprise or enterprise resources on time. So, with time factors like modifying individual user account properties so that they reflect the changes in the user's job, role, responsibilities, and access privileges, all of these becomes almost impossible to be taken care by your IT admins manually. So that is exactly where 8360's user lifecycle management feature helps organizations do this by automating the entire process. This is how the console looks, and AD360's user lifecycle management feature is actually designed to help system administrators with managing these daily tasks of user lifecycle management. So, everything from provisioning to deprovisioning, all of it can be done from a single console, as you can see here. Now you can create and modify users in bulk. You can configure their general attributes as well, and the entire process of enabling or disabling or deleting inactive user accounts, all of this can be handled very easily. These routine tasks like bulk user management, all of this can be automated with defined automation policies, as you can see here. So basically, your job has been made very easy with AD360's module AD Manager Plus. The next must have feature we'll talk about is password management. Now that the user management process is set in place, you can create and manage user identities easily. What comes next is to ensure secure access management. So, as the first step, any enterprise resource or application will require a set of user credentials to be logged in. So, because passwords act as the primary level of authentication, it is very important to ensure that secure passwords are used in the first place. So, passwords, to be honest, sometimes can act as your first line of defense against unauthorized access. Not sometimes, in most of the cases, we're still very, very dependent on passwords. And with 90% of passwords being vulnerable to cyber attacks, it is very important to have a strict policy enforcer which mandates the usage of secure passwords. So password management feature, it should also consider the ease of usage of the end users who will eventually have to go through these policies in real life. And without the assistance of a password management tool, managing secure passwords for all enterprise applications and resources, it's impossible in the long run. So this is how AD360's password management console looks like. It has a password policy enforcer, and you can create custom password policies for your domains or for your different teams or different departments in your organizations. So AD360's module AD Self-Service Plus actually deals with password management. It'll help you with unique password restrictions as additional level of security. So you can create a password policy that will reject passwords with a consecutive repetition of the same character, or it'll reject the use of palindromes or dictionary words. So in terms of policy enforcement mandates or regulations, such granular password policies can actually help you in meeting regulatory compliance requirements, and also NIST's password policy requirements. So it allows for password self service also right from the user logon screens. AD360 is honestly driven by password management features like self-service password reset and self-service account unlock, which will actually allow your users to reset passwords and unlock accounts without requiring IT assistance or without having to call up your IT help desk or raise a ticket. So it'll include a password or account expiration notification, which will notify the users that their passwords are about to expire. And a great feature of AD360 or AD Self Service Plus is that it enables you to also implement conditional access policies to automate access control decisions based on factors like IP address or device used, the working hours and geolocation. So what happens is, for example, if you're trying to log in to your system from a different location, for example, a different country, and then you're trying to log in at odd hours, the device will actually treat this as a deviation from your general behavior. So it'll immediately ask you to provide a step up authentication, or it'll block your access completely. So other than that, there are several other features like mobile password management, password status reports, email notifications. All of this can help your IT admins with effective password management. Now that we've discussed the two basic authentication features, we'll move on to the slightly complex ones. So, passwords work great as an authentication technique, but are just passwords secure enough anymore? No, even though we rely on it even now, majorly we rely on it even now, but to be honest, they are not secure enough. So, passwords as the only authentication requirement are simply not secure enough. In fact, they can be misused very easily. They pose a serious threat to the security of enterprise networks if they're breached. And breaching or hacking passwords are like very easy. Almost 80% of hacking related breaches were related to password issues. Therefore, we need additional levels of verification to ensure secure access, and this is where the endpoint MFA feature comes in. So endpoint MFA, it'll help you enable multiple levels of authentication to access the enterprise applications or network or data. And when endpoint MFA is enabled, users must authenticate their identity via minimum of two methods. Now, along with the usual username, password duo, an additional authentication method like OTP or biometrics, whatever you choose to, opt for, is also deployed. And the most important reason why businesses must deploy MFA is poor password hygiene. So often businesses tend to believe that protecting enterprise data with just username password is sufficient, but data has time and again shown us that poor password hygiene is one of the leading causes of data breach, because it's practically not possible. We have been using so many applications. We use almost multiple applications throughout the day because of various job functions to perform various activities, and remembering all those passwords is practically impossible. That is when we resort to using poor passwords, and we tend to write down our passwords. So because of all these poor password hygienes, we have been seeing that it's one of the leading causes of data breach. Now, when endpoint MFA is deployed as an additional layer of authentication, the risks of data breaches is reduced comparatively, and even in case of compromised user credentials, the access to enterprise network and data is denied without proper MFA authentication. So endpoint MFA, it ensures both secure local and remote logins. And other than secure logins, deploying MFA also helps businesses meet NIST policies or GDPR or PCI DSS and HIPAA compliance regulations. So this is how the AD Self Service Plus, which is a module of AD 360, looks like. As you can see, there are policies that you can create around multi-factor authentication. You can choose from almost 20 authenticators that we have in place, and there's MFA for reset or unlock passwords when you're trying to self service, reset and unlock passwords, and there's MFA for endpoints, and there's MFA for applications as well. So it includes both cloud and on-premises applications and endpoints. So when you use AD Self-Service Plus, Endpoint MFA can be deployed across multiple use cases, like for endpoint access or application access, self-service password reset. So as I just mentioned, so this means that in case of endpoint MFA for application access, all the SSO enabled enterprise applications are already coupled with MFA verification, so that we can ensure a secure access at all times. Now, in case of self service password reset, users can easily reset their passwords to unlock their accounts all by themselves, but they need to prove their identity via the MFA to successfully complete the process. Now, with 80 self service plus, IT admins can also set different levels of MFA for different set of users. And for instance, users within the corporate network can be mandated with only one set of MFA, but remote users or privileged users like CEOs or CISOs, they can be mandated with more stringent MFA requirements like fingerprints or any other biometric authentication. Now, for the ease of users to prove their identity with minimal effort, AD Self Service Plus also provides more than 20 authentication techniques. I just showed you, yeah, this is how it looks. There is SMS verification, which I wouldn't recommend, but okay. There's Google Authenticator, there's Microsoft Authenticator, there's Duo, there's Fingerprint, there's Face ID. So, practically a plethora of authenticators to choose from, or factors to choose from, and they do not always require external hardware devices. As I just mentioned, it can be just Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator. There's Zoho OneAuth as well. So that's about Endpoint. Now that we've established the user account management process, secure passwords, MFA, now with so many security techniques in place, the first question that comes up is, how does the end user deal with all these processes? How do they feel? How can we ensure security and user comfort at the same time? So for this, we have single sign on. We call it SSO. So SSO is just a security technique, and using that, users can log into multiple enterprise applications using just one set of credentials. And today, with rapid cloud adoption and usage of services like SaaS, users end up using more and more apps every day. This means that they have to log in and out of all such applications on a regular basis. And if each application and website had a unique password of its own, which the user had to enter every time they needed access, there, that's it. So, SSO aims to solve this precise problem, and it practically eliminates the need for multiple usernames and passwords. So once a user has entered their credentials and the same is successfully authenticated, the user is provided access to all the applications. So what do we achieve through this is the need for multiple password prompts during the same session can be avoided. So other than secure logins, SSO also helps businesses meet regulatory mandates like GDPR, SOX, or HIPAA. Another great thing about SSO is it also reduces the attack surface, which is a very, very, very important um, consequence of SSO, I would say. So this is how 8360's SSO console looks like, which is ideally 80 self-service plus SSO console. So any application that has SAML and NTLM protocols, all of them can be authenticated through single sign-on. So it's purpose built in such a way for both on-premise and cloud applications. And if you're using 8360's SSO solution, you can uh, have like a seamless one-click access to all your user applications and websites. And since businesses are adopting more cloud-based services, users need to remember and manage more passwords. But with 8360's SSO, you can easily use one set of identities to set up SSO for more than 100 cloud applications. So it acts as the primary identity provider, and it requires users to be logged in. Now, once the user is logged in, they can view their dashboard and the dashboard will have a list of all the cloud applications they have access to. So users, they have to remember multiple credentials. If they have to remember credentials for different applications stuff, they tend to forget their passwords more often. And then the end user experience, that leads to password related help desk tickets for IT technicians, all of this gets impacted. So deploying SSO solution will actually reduce your overall IT expenses by reducing the costs related to password reset tickets. So if I had to say, I would put it this way, that 8360 saves time, it saves efforts, and it also saves money by utilizing users' existing identities for authentication, and it'll practically help you to also regularly control how users access their cloud apps. So SSO feature, if I had to sum it up, it can help you minimize password security issues, it can help you increase employee productivity, and also enhance the end user experience. Now, the next must have feature that we will be talking about is cached credentials. So, there was a research that I was just going through which says that password related concerns form up to 30% of all IT help desk calls. So, now with more users working remotely, uh, all of them call IT help desk up for forgotten and expired passwords, and this is like a rising concern for all businesses because at times all of this can even cause major business disruptions. Now, there is a lot of commonly occurring password related mishaps in an organization. So when a user forgets their password and it's reset in active directory by the IT help desk, the cached credentials in the user's machines are considered inaccurate, and the user will not be able to access their machine. So in other cases, what happens is remote users forget to change their passwords even after multiple password expiry notifications, and they would be unable to access their machines since their cached credentials have expired. So users should be able to reset passwords remotely irrespective of their location, and also update the cached credentials in the machines automatically. And as a resolution, AD Self Service Plus has an automatic cached credentials update feature. So, this allows users to reset their passwords securely and automatically update the cached credentials remotely on their machines. So, 8360's Gina or CP client, it'll allow remote users to reset their password right from the logon screen of their machines. So, I'll elaborate this process a little bit. When users reset their password in 8360 or 80 Celsius Plus, the Gina or CP client is notified that the reset was successful. Now, after that, the Gina or the CP client, they'll establish a secure connection with Active Directory via a VPN client, Fortinet, or whatever your company uses, and it'll initiate a request to update the locally cached credentials. Now, once this request is approved, AD Self Service Plus will perform a forced cached credentials update on the user's machines. So, this automated cache credentials update feature, it saves like a huge amount of time for the IT admins, and they also reduce the end user burden as well. The next feature that we'll be talking about now is privileged access management. And we know that most security threats occur due to unauthorized access, and uh, they also occur because of privilege credential abuse. So it's all the more important to talk about privileged access management or have a PAM solution in place. So privileged access management, it's actually like a component of network security. It deals with managing privileged users who are usually like C level executives or managing directors, VPs. These users will usually have elevated access to sensitive data or business critical resources in the enterprise network, and they'll also be equipped with the privilege to perform administrative actions. Now, the idea of PAM is to create a secure environment for the sensitive and confidential organizational data. And this is done usually by separating such data and resources and providing access only to the privileged members. So these access rights, they must be provided very selectively, they have to be monitored and then periodically reviewed. So PAM is much more than just securing sensitive data. It also includes ensuring that only the ones who need access get access. So this means that each user must only be granted with permissions that they absolutely need to perform their job functions. So, this way of granting access rights is known as the least privilege method. It's also like one of the most important principles of zero trust. So, PAM is basically just an extension of the least privilege model in certain ways. AD Manager Plus, which is a module of AD 360, it can help you with PAM requirements, and it has a lot of reports and access control functionalities. It can help you identify the number of users with access to privileged accounts and provide you detailed reports of what all they can access as well. So you can also temporarily elevate the access rights of a user and revoke them automatically once the user does not require those permissions. So AD Manager Plus, it'll also help you identify these improper or accidental and even malicious changes made by privileged users or administrators by monitoring their activities continuously. And one of the most important processes that must be monitored to keep privilege access in check is group memberships. So, by default, users are part of different groups and they inherent rights from being the group member, and it becomes crucial to track the scope of such groups. So AD Manager Plus gives you that visibility. You can keep a check on groups that have members and which don't, or maybe nested members. You can keep a check on them. So often each group has certain stray users which would have gained access to groups by inheritance. So such users profile must be assessed, and if their membership is not required, it should be revoked immediately. The last IAM must have feature that we'll be discussing today is tracking user activity. Now, it's very crucial for organizations to monitor and track their users' behavior as a preventive measure. They need to identify suspicious behavior as and when it occurs. So, monitoring user behavior is also very important to detect and respond to possible insider threats. And while you're monitoring user activity regularly, organizations can simply be ready to identify and prevent cyber attacks even before they occur. So even if you're not able to prevent the attack, identifying on time or soon enough will actually help you minimize the damage to like a certain extent. So user activity tracking, it will also help you stay compliant with legal requirements. For instance, there are certain laws that pertain to industries like healthcare or finance. So sorry, BFSI. So having which has a lot of strict regulations regarding data sharing. So when you regularly track these user activities, you will be able to keep a check, and you can remain compliant with the mandatory legalities of each compliance. So 8360's user activity tracking feature uh, will actually provide you complete visibility into the activities of individual users. So AD Audit Plus, that is the module of AD360, which helps you do user activity tracking by using user behavior analytics. So with that, you can track or respond to and also prevent malicious logon attempts and any other suspicious activity immediately. So it'll provide you with the exposure to view all user logon attempts, and other than that, user logon details such as the logon time or location, all of it can be viewed in one console. Now, uh, while using AD Audit Plus, you can periodically assess the privilege use in your organization by continuously monitoring or auditing privileged user accounts, and maintaining a clear detailed audit trail. Since compliance requirements have become mandatory nowadays, you can also monitor and track privileged user access to sensitive data, and you can also detect any violation of data integrity. Now, in terms of response strategy, AD Odd Plus helps you to perform analysis of security incidents to identify what was their cause and what can be done to fix the same. Now, AD Audit Plus uses user behavior analytics functionalities. It uses machine learning to swiftly identify user actions with appear suspicious in comparison to their normal patterns or normal behavior. And this will actually help you to identify possible attackers or possible malicious activities. And these attackers could just be using the stolen or shared credentials of one of the users. So it's all the more important to always keep a very, very close look at all user activities throughout their life cycle. Now, with the exponential growth of cyber insurance markets, cyber insurance providers are investigating their clients' cybersecurity postures and controls. So, businesses are measured based on their cyber risk score, which is like an indication of your level of exposure to risks and how exposed you are to vulnerabilities. So it's simple. The cyber risk of each client is what gets transferred to the cyber insurance provider as well. So insurance providers will obviously extend higher insurance coverage at lower costs to the more cyber resilient clients who are well prepared for attacks when they occur. Now, aligned with NIST's cybersecurity framework, these seven must have IAM features. It can get your organization cyber insured, and 8360 is a great choice which can help you implement these seven IAM capabilities and fast track your journey to becoming cyber secure. You can start by looking into adopting the seven must have IAM features we discussed in the webinar to get insured by the top cyber insurance providers at lower costs. So, you must be wondering that I have been using the name of so many solutions: AD360, AD Self Service Plus, AD Manager Plus, AD Audit Plus. The reason why I did so is I understand that you might be at some place in your journey to be cyber insured, or you already have an IM program in place, so that you can pick and choose from the features that you need to deploy in your organization. AD360 has separate modules for everything. So if you need endpoint MFA, if you need SSO, if you need authentication related features, AD Self Service Plus is the one you should go for. If you need user behavior analysis, you need AD Audit Plus. If you need user lifecycle management or basically access management, managing identities, you need AD Manager Plus. And if you need all of these, AD360 is your one stop solution. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. If you have any questions, please write to me at debs@manageengine.com. I'd be very happy to help you with anything that you may require. If you want a demo of any one of the solution, or if you want a demo of the entire suite AD360, I would love to help you with that. just drop me an email at debs@manageengine.com and we can get things started. Thank you so much again for joining today. I hope you have a very, very lovely day. Thank you so much.